So my last few questions would be: how will Trump deal with South Asia? As you mentioned in your column in foreign policy, Rick Grenell is in his administration as the presidential envoy for special missions. With Bangladesh, he enjoys a very lukewarm relationship with Muhammad Yunus, and he's keen to carry out, I think, the counter-terrorism missions in Afghanistan without on the ground presence. So, how will he deal with South Asia as a whole? And will Imran Khan be released? That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah, I think that generally speaking, Trump's policy in South Asia will be very similar to Biden's. It'll be driven by the Indo-Pacific policy, which is, the core U.S. policy in Asia. Trump Trump himself came up with it. It was retained by Biden. Trump will retain it as well. And I think that the Indo-Pacific policy, as you know, it's meant to counter China by trying to position the U.S. to pitch investments, particularly in infrastructure, that are meant to be better than what China can do. And so I think that this is something that the Trump administration will continue. Now, of course, with the suspension of foreign assistance, that might impact the way that this is done. That remains to be seen. But I think on the whole, sort of as a broad macro regional policy, it's going to be pretty much the same. The U.S. is going to try to push to counter China in the region by incentivizing countries in the region to rely less on China. I think that'll be the default position, very similar to Biden. But indeed, as you suggest, when it comes to country-specific approaches, there could be some differences, and I think Bangladesh will be the most obvious. The Biden administration left the relationship with Bangladesh in a place where the U.S. was essentially the guarantor of, or a guarantor of, Bangladesh's recovery. The U.S. had, promised to provide significant levels of assistance, including development assistance and technical assistance for reforms. This is not something that the Trump administration is going to do. So I think that that's a relationship that will require some work, for sure. It's going to be very different, much more modest a relationship than it had been during the post-Hasina period, during those last few months of the Biden administration. Um, with Pakistan, I think that, the Biden administration was not very keen to work with Pakistan, and I don't think the Trump administration will be either. Um, in terms of the Imran Khan factor, I really don't know. I think that there's a good chance that we could see at some point soon the president posting a message on social media or saying somewhere that he's concerned about Imran Khan's plight and that he should be free. He knows about Khan's plight, and you've got a very impassioned, organized Pakistani American community that's been advocating very heavily and is engaged with Trump people, the Trump campaign earlier, and presumably the Trump administration as well. So he knows what's going on. But you see, for me, the idea of Trump making a policy of pressuring Pakistan and Pakistan's military to free Khan, given how transactional President Trump is, I think you have to pose the question: how would that serve Trump's interest? How would it serve U.S. interest? What would be in it for President Trump and the U.S. on the whole, for the U.S. to start advocating for the release of a political leader overseas? And I'm not sure. I'm not sure I've heard a good answer to that question yet. There might be a good answer to it, but I haven't. I haven't heard it yet. So, but we'll see. And indeed, you're right. I mean, this has been a key question that's been generating a lot of speculation on social media in Pakistan, and certainly the PTI, Khan's party, and the Pakistani American community is really hoping to see something. But we'll see.
With the Taliban, that's
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. Very. It's interesting here. Here's where you might have some differences within the administration. Um, Mike Waltz, who's close to Trump, obviously in a very significant position, he never wanted to leave Afghanistan. He, of course, knows Afghanistan well. He served there as a U.S. Military personnel soldier commander. He didn't want to leave. He didn't want the U.S. to leave. He thought that the U.S. should have stayed to fight terrorism there. He's done a few interviews in recent weeks, Waltz, where he said that Afghanistan is led by a caliphate, the Taliban, and that you have a lot of terrorism issues there, Al Qaeda, Islamic State, Khorasan. So, yeah, I think that so many people have said that, the Trump administration is not going to care much about Afghanistan. That might be true, but I think on the issue of terrorism, that will keep its attention, and it will face the same challenge that the Biden administration did. How do you monitor terrorist threats and indeed, if necessary, pursue them without a presence on the ground? And so far as I know, the US does not have any type of agreement with any country neighboring Afghanistan, including Pakistan, that would enable the U.S. to be in a position to better monitor these terrorism threats. This sort of brings in the Pakistan question again. I mean, it's very clear that Pakistan wants to leverage U.S. concerns about terrorism in Afghanistan to try to essentially pitch for a new counterterrorism alliance between the U.S. and Pakistan, in which Pakistan could offer certain things, intelligence, that type of thing. But it would want things in return. And frankly, I don't think the Trump administration would have much interest in working with the Pakistani military. We know when Trump was president the last time, he didn't really have many kind words for Pakistan and the Pakistani military. He, of course, hosted Imran Khan, but he wanted Pakistan's help to enable the U.S. to get out of Afghanistan. So this is definitely something to watch. This might entail the U.S. trying to strengthen its capacities from its existing bases in the Gulf, in the Middle East, to be in a better position to monitor and target these threats. But I think that the administration will want to be careful. It definitely will not. Well, Trump will not want to send troops back, have more boots on the ground. That's out of the question, in my view. But and with what I started with, I think this is an area where there might be some differences in views, given that Trump, I think, will have much less interest in focusing on Afghanistan than a Mike Waltz would, someone who has been repeatedly focused on the Afghanistan issue and the terrorism issue. And indeed, it was the view of the previous administration, which I think the current administration would agree with, that Islamic State Khorasan, it's an Afghanistan-based group, but it is able to project a threat far beyond Afghanistan, including potentially the U.S. I mean, there have been some ISK plots that were foiled in Europe and indeed in the United States. That's something that this administration will not take lightly.
Well, Michael, that was a very interesting conversation, and I enjoyed your insights. So, thank you for your time, and I look forward to having you again when your time permits. So, thank you.
Thank you. Great conversation, and thanks for having me again.